Yeah. So we've talked about the assessments and we've talked about the basics of law. So we're now going to move on and talk about the courts. Just a quick reminder of the things we spoke about during the first week of this module about the court. Just a mention of court visits. Unfortunately, this year so far it has not been possible to visit the courts, so we're not able to publish a schedule. Normally, I'd want to make sure you got along to the courts. If that changes at some point, we will do our best to get you there. In the meantime, though, please look at the material which is sitting in the week one folder, and in there's a mock-up trial, a Crown Court trial, but it's a very well researched and well supported mock-up trial. Involves young people for a GCSE project, but it's really useful. It shows you who's who and gives you a kind of a taste of what a trial might be like if and when you get to see a court. Courts are public places, so over the course of the program over the next 2 years, when things ease up in terms of restrictions, I'll encourage you to go along to courts and see them in action for yourself. But meanwhile, look at those videos which are on Blackboard. Well, we're now going to talk about the courts. I mentioned early on that there are basically three categories of crime. And we're talking about criminal law now. So we're in criminal law, and within criminal law, there are three categories of crime. You remember they're indictable offences. So these are, the most serious cases, things like murder, rape, awful crimes like that. Now they have to be sent to the Crown Court. Now they'll start in a magistrates' court, which is the lowest criminal court. Everything starts in the magistrates' court, but because they're indictable, they have to be dealt with by the senior court. They have to be dealt with at the Crown Court. So those are cases which are known as indictable. There are either way offences. So some of those sort of middle of the road type crimes, things like theft and assault. Now the magistrate or the defendant can choose the case to either be tried at the magistrates' court or to be sent up to the Crown Court. So if the magistrates, when it appears at the magistrates' court, feel they don't have enough sentencing powers because it's quite a serious type of theft or assault, they may say, no, we don't want to deal with this, we want to send this to the Crown Court. And similarly, the defendant may think, well, I'd rather go to the Crown Court, because what happens at the Crown Court is that they get a jury, and they may want to take their chances with a jury rather than with a bench of magistrates. And finally, there are summary offences. So summary offences are those least serious offences, motoring offences, common assault, which is a kind of lower end of assault, and those cases will be dealt with by the magistrates. There's no option to send those up to the Crown Court. So it's important you're aware of these different categories of crime when you're thinking about how the courts work. So let me just, I'm not sure I can make this. Let me just move the frame down a little bit so the slide doesn't quite fit on. So you remember there's a hierarchy of courts, and up the left-hand side there you can see the criminal hierarchy from magistrates as the lowest level of court in the hierarchy, and every case starts there. Even the most serious cases, murders, etc., they will all start in the magistrates' court, but if they're indictable, they'll go on up to the Crown Court. On the right-hand side, you're seeing the route that civil cases take up through the courts, and you'll see when it gets to the High Court level, within the High Court there are civil and criminal cases. Similarly, in the Court of Appeal, civil and criminal divisions within the Court of Appeal. And at the very top is the Supreme Court. So that's the most senior court in the land, and that's the one that will make a decision about or a final decision on a case if it has got that far. Most cases are settled by the court where they first appear. So, talked about appeals. Remember we spoke about appeals. So if somebody is not happy with the sentence or with the decision of the court, the verdict of the court, they can apply to appeal. Now, of course, not every case is given permission, granted leave to appeal, but if there are grounds for appeal, then a more senior court will have to hear that. So if there's an appeal from a magistrate's court, that'll be heard by the Crown Court. And you'll remember we went through the routes that cases take. So a magistrate's court will appeal to a Crown Court. Someone who's appeared in the magistrate's court who is appealing against a principle held within the case will go to High Court. Crown Court appeals go up to the Court of Appeal. High Court appeals go up to the Court of Appeal, and Court of Appeal appeals, people who are appealing against decisions by the Court of Appeal, they go up to the Supreme Court. On the civil side, remember that, you'll see that we didn't really deal with tribunals in detail, but just understand that all appeals from civil courts, and remember county courts are where most civil cases happen, they all go up to the Court of Appeal Civil Division. So the answer for where an appeal will go from a civil case will always go to the Court of Appeal first, and then if there's an appeal against the ruling made by the Court of Appeal, then that will go up to the Supreme Court. The important thing here is you understand there is a hierarchy of courts, and that you always have to appeal to a higher court about either the verdict or against the sentence. So that's the court. I'm going to end this one. It's a short video. I'm going to end this one here, and then our next video we'll look at the issue of contempt.